there and welcome back to InSTEM. In today's video, I'm going to be chatting to Titi Oliyide. Titi is a chemical engineer who has a breadth of experience across multiple industries, from railway to oil and gas to hydrogen. She's going to be sharing her very interesting career journey with me today. In addition to a breadth of experience, she recently became a chartered engineer, so she's also going to be sharing tips and practical insights on the steps she took to becoming a chartered engineer. I hope you enjoy watching. Thank you. Hey Titi, and welcome to InSTEM. It's so great to have you here.
Hello, lovely to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about your career your career pathway. I say learn, I know you quite well, so I guess I'm excited to share your career path with the InSTEM audience and share your insights on your engineering journey so far, what you've learned along the way, what you do differently, etc., etc. So yeah, welcome on board.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
As you know, the tradition recently is to start with an icebreaker. Are you ready? Are you ready for your icebreaker?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful.
Let's go for it.
So I know that you love traveling.
Yes.
It's one of your favorite hobbies, right? So I've picked a question related to that.
Okay.
So what fictional place or world would you love to visit if you had the opportunity to?
Do you know what? I think I just also watched like Black Panther 2.
I knew you were gonna say this. I knew you were gonna say. I just knew it. I just knew it.
So I guess it's Wakanda.
Fair enough. In fairness, I would say the same thing. Even though I've not watched the latest one, but I just thought when I was putting the question together, I was like, yeah, I'm 90% sure she's gonna say Wakanda. But yeah, no, it's a great place to visit. It's a good one to choose, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It'll be just exciting to see how they've used vibranium for so many things and all of that. So, yeah, it'll be quite good and peaceful as well, I guess. So yeah.
Great answer. So let's delve into the questions now. You're a chemical engineer, you're chartered, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about further along the interview. But first things first, what led you to choose chemical engineering as your degree of choice?
Okay, that's a really good question, I guess. Yeah, good place to start. So actually, it started from something else that I really love, which is food. And so, like growing up, I would watch my mom cook, and then she like, especially if you know Nigerian food, like you put like onions and pepper and all these things, and then it's just come out into like this really tasty and good looking stew as well. So I just always wanted to understand how, like, what are the changes that occur when you sort of put things together and they turn into like a like, you put all the raw materials of the food and of the dish and you put them together to get this amazing dish. And so then I realized that I was also curious about, like, I love math as well, so it as you do, especially in Nigerian households, if you like math, you're probably going to become an engineer. And then when I had to then make that choice of what kind of engineering am I going into, I realized that chemical engineering was really about turning raw materials into finished products. And I was like, oh, that's just like cooking, isn't it? So I'll say, like, the combination of talking to my parents and also discussing with an older colleague, my sister's friend, on the different types of engineering she was studying in the uni I wanted to attend as well in Nigeria. And so yeah, that just sort of led me into chemical engineering, and yeah, we're still here so far, so it's been good so far.
Great story. My takeaway from that is the asking and verifying with people, parents and family friends, etc. I think it's really important to do that. It looks like you've had a great time so far. You've worked in multiple sectors, oil and gas. You're currently working in hydrogen. I think at some point you worked in railway. And you've built yourself an area of expertise in safety. You're my go-to person when I have any safety related questions. So would you like to expand a little bit more about your experience in industry so far?
Yeah, sure. So I studied in Nigeria for my undergrad, and then I came into the UK to study for my master's degree. And after studying for my master's degree, I got a job in safety, in process safety, working in the oil and gas industry. So what that entailed was, safety and reliability, actually. So carrying out safety studies for to make sure that we have that safe design and safe, reliable, and sustainable design and operation for oil and gas facilities as they're being built. And like you said, I've also worked in the rail industry, which is also particularly for the signaling and control systems, which is really the bedrock of, again, safety and reliability for the entire rail system, because you want to make sure that your trains are moving safely, they're working reliable as well. You don't want to get there and maybe your train is 10 minutes late or things like that. So that's also something that I was able to work on upgrade projects and also new projects as well for the rail industry in the UK. And now I currently work in hydrogen, so production of green hydrogen from the electrolysis of water to be able to then use that for high pressure applications as well. So yeah, I think in all this, what has been interesting to me across all these industries or across all these applications is that the safety principles are the same. You want to sort of look into so whilst other engineers are looking at, this is how we want to design things, safety engineers are kind of looking at it from another point of view, like what could go wrong, and making sure that, as we look at what could go wrong, we then mitigate against that. And then we do that through, risk analysis and different types of workshops as well. So it's always interesting to sort of see how these principles carry across different industries. And yeah, it's been exciting for me.
Sounds super interesting. So you moved from oil and gas into railway, which is not, as much as I advocate, and I'm super proud of the fact that chemical engineers can work in pretty much any industry. There are some industries that are more conventional than others. So railway for me isn't your typical industry for a chemical engineer. How did you find that transition?
And yeah, that's a really good question. And something that I've been trying to, think back and see what did I do, quite to be able to pinpoint what has helped. And I think it's really I say something, I don't know if I read it somewhere or whatever, but it's really that going to uni, apart from what you actually learn, you learn good principles and all of that, but I think it also gives you the ability to learn other things. So it gives you it makes you know how to learn as well. And so for me, that was something that I quickly realized. So I realized in moving from oil and gas, which is, like you said, very chemical engineering related, to railway that is maybe not so much chemical engineering related, I realized that, okay, I had to pinpoint what I needed to learn to succeed and what I needed to understand to succeed. I think also being a safety engineer kind of helps you because you get that bird's eye view. So whilst even when you're working in a chemical engineering related industry, you're probably also getting involved in some things like electricals, or like understanding how, your say, for example, if you're trying to mitigate against an explosion risk, you're probably going to work with like a civil engineer as well to understand how, the mitigation measures you're putting in place are going to withstand, against some sort of explosion risk that you're mitigating against. And so you tend to work with different types of engineers. And so I think that was really key for me to understand what I needed to know. And there were also training courses. I think, learning is a lifelong thing. So even though we studied, a particular thing in uni, we definitely need to keep learning, keep ourselves abreast of the new things that, we need to learn to succeed as well. So I'd say that those two things, understanding that I need to know how to learn from uni, and also, being able to identify what I don't know, and taking those training courses were really important to me being able to work successfully in the rail industry as well. So yeah.
Great. So I can imagine lots of interesting projects you've worked on. Can you tell me which is your most your favorite project so far?
Well, yeah, like you said, it's especially in the rail industry. I think that really brought me close to different things, like close to the project that I've worked on. So I'll say one of the most interesting projects I've worked on was the Elizabeth line or Crossrail, really. So yeah, that was very interesting for me because I'll say because of three things really. So because of the fact that it was a very complex project. So first of all, it was it was putting in a new control system and interfacing that with two existing control systems. And so basically working with three different types of control systems. And, like I mentioned before, the control and the signaling system for any railway line is where, the safety and the reliability really sits. And so that was, very challenging for safety engineers to be able to say, okay, how do we assure that whilst we have these three different types of three different types of control systems, making sure they talk together in a safe and reliable way. So that was very, very important. And then, because it was a really big project, I think there were tens of thousands of engineers working, of people generally working on that project. So understanding the stakeholder management, that was really interesting for me, working with people in different offices within my company, and also working with different people in different companies as well. So, the three different parts I talked about, they were being managed by different companies as well. So ensuring that we got to talk to one another, making sure that, all the safety documentation and the analysis that had to be done were encompassing everybody's point of view was, very challenging, but it was also a really great growth process for me. I'll say the last one, which is probably the most important, the most tangible, is the impact that you sort of it was a very impactful project. So, at first, the brief of the project was that it was increasing the capacity of central London, rail capacity by 10%. And, that is in itself quite big because, we understand how complex the central London rail system is. So increasing it by 10% is a big deal. But also seeing after it was opened up in May of this year, seeing how people were saying, oh, my journey is now, faster. And, that was really exciting for me. Like, oh, yes, I was definitely a part of that. And even recently, I got on it with my family members as well. And, just for us being able to get to where we're going to very quickly, very easily, I was just like, I'll just, beaming like, oh, yes, I was definitely a part of that. So, that impact is so important. So, those three things I think have been very, would make it one of my favorite projects.
Wonderful. Now, let me add to the testimonials you've already received. It used to take me at least an hour and a half to get to Oxford Street in particular.
Yeah.
Now it takes me less than an hour because of the Elizabeth line. I absolutely, it's literally my favorite line. Like, so, well done to you and all the other tens of thousands of engineers that worked on it. It's such a brilliant project, a brilliant piece of work. I like that answer. Moving on to your chartership. So you recently became chartered. For most engineers, that's the very sort of clear milestone you want to achieve once you obtain your degree. So well done. Talk me through the process of becoming chartered. How was it for you?
Yes, so like you said, it feels like another another graduation. After your graduation, it makes you know that your experience is to a particular level, and so it's been in the works. It's been one of the goals that I've had after finishing from uni, finishing my degree and thinking, okay, what's the next thing to get chartered, and so I'll say that in the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to be part of. Well, I started off in chemical engineering. I joined the IChemE, that's the Institute of Chemical Engineers, as a student member whilst I was in uni. But in the course of my career, having worked in different both chemical engineering, traditional chemical engineering industries, and non-chemical engineering industries, I also joined the Institute of Engineering and Technology. So I had that opportunity to either pursue chartership through either of them. Yeah.
Interesting. So I think that's probably a key note for someone watching who wants to become chartered. You were a member of two institutions, IChemE and IIT, and you got your chartership through the IIT, the Institution of Engineering and Technology. So what was the reason with going with the IIT over the IChemE?
Yeah, so for me, I joined the IIT whilst I was working in the I was still doing engineering, but I wasn't doing, core chemical engineering. And so for me, IIT was able to encompass it had a wider reach or wider scope of the engineering activities or engineering sectors that I worked in. So it was able to encompass that breadth of experience that I'd gotten. So that was, I think for me, that was what steered me towards, going with the IIT as opposed to maybe the IChemE. So I think this is just maybe a recommendation for someone. Like, you don't have to get stuck in looking at what it's because it's your experience that matters more. You can also, widen your horizons in terms of looking at what institution, what professional engineering institution, can accommodate all your experience basically. So yeah, that was I think that's what helped me to have that focus on the IET.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you for that, Titi. I know that that process can be quite arduous.
Yeah.
You've got to be incredibly focused and disciplined to get through
Okay.
the report writing process, the interview preparation, etc. So, for you, were there any challenges that you had along the way, and how did you deal with them?
Oh yeah, I mean, you just mentioned one of them. So one of them is the fact that you're working, especially if your work is very intense. Maybe you're working on intense projects, or you're working on different things at the same time. Particularly as a safety engineer, sometimes you might be working on 3, 4 different projects in your company, and so that when you finish your day job, having to then go back to say, okay, how do I put in this experience and try and further that application process. It was quite challenging. I would say another challenge for me was because I had studied both in Nigeria and in the UK as well. Getting that recognition for my undergrad degree from Nigeria was a bit of a challenge at first, but I think with guidance from the professional institution in the IET, they were able to show me, this is how we can take advantage of the fact that you have studied this, and getting that recognition for my undergraduate degree from as an international student was also a challenge, but that was something that I was able to solve as well. And I think just understanding what the process was like, that's also a challenge, but I think it's very important to reach out to your network and just see how other people have done it before, which was what I did, and that really helped me out in the process as well. So yeah, I think those two, being having an international degree, and also just getting that time to put that together and consciously taking it as a goal and making sure that this is achieved and putting the time aside to do that. I think that's really important. So yeah.
That's great. I would like you to please summarize 3 key tips on staying focused through the process. I mentioned earlier it requires a high level of focus and discipline. So what are some of the practical things that you did to remain focused? I know this is something that can take a quite long duration as well. We're talking, for most people, minimum 6 months from writing your reports, getting it verified, to submitting and going through the interview. So how do you maintain a level of focus and discipline in that period?
Yeah, so 3 tips really: to start as early as possible. So make sure that you get that information, together, and just understand where you're going to, and breaking it into bite-sized chunks basically, and starting that process as early as possible. That's really important. Tapping into your network. There are people in your network that have gotten chartered before you. It doesn't necessarily have to be your in the same professional engineering institution, so like IET or IChemE, but still tap into their network, because the process is almost the same. So definitely get them to review your application, prepare you for interviews like you did as well, and just different things like that. That's just really helpful. And then I'll say the third thing as well is to use the resources of your professional engineering institution as well. So for example, for me, going through the IET, it was very helpful that I had the help of a professional registration advisor as well, that was able to take me through the process, identify what mistakes I was liable to make, and ensuring that those mistakes were corrected during the practice session, so that then didn't come through in the final interview. So those 3 things, start as early as possible, break things down into bite-sized chunks, tap into your network. People have done what you've done before, so definitely tap into their experience, and then also make use of your professional engineering institution as well. So with those three things, they'll keep you in focus, and yeah, hopefully you get that successful chartership approval as well. So yeah.
Excellent. No, those are really great tips to share. Final question. What's next for you now that you're chartered? What have you got, any particular plans?
Oh yeah. So I think it's for me is to keep working on impactful projects, trying to make sure that, what I do, I can sort of see the big picture of how it affects the world around me. So, and then getting the next generation as well into it. So I'm really big on, um, making sure that people understand that engineering is not just something that cannot be attained. We are all working towards it, and we are all working in it, and doing our best to be solution providers. So yeah, that's really it for me. So those are the next things for me. Just keep working on impactful projects and keep inspiring the next generation in any way I can. And yeah, hopefully,
Wonderful.
you get
In
exciting things.
fairness, you're already doing these things, and I can imagine you're only going to continue to make even much bigger impact. So, yeah, well done to you, and thank you so much for coming to InSTEM. It's been such a breath of fresh air speaking to you, learning about your experience. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure many people watching will learn a lot as well. If you would like more content, please hit the like button and the subscribe button so you can get notifications on new videos. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, please share, subscribe. Yes. Thank you.